thing. Bastian ain't the only one who got a rework.
Yeah.
Beep, boop.
Yes.
Beep, boop, boop.
I love the idea.
This is your deck 2.0. That's what you can expect from next season.
I love
You're gonna wear hats at all times. But no, jokes aside, this is the moment we've all been waiting for. Please give a warm welcome to Overwatch lead hero designer Geoff Goodman. Jeff, how are you doing?
Hey, how you guys doing? Thanks.
We're doing great. Do you like our rework?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love
Big
it.
fan of the hats we're wearing.
You don't even need him. It doesn't even look that sunny
what we
out there
thought.
anymore.
It really doesn't. It's still warm though. It's still warm. You wouldn't like it. You wouldn't like it.
I'm just in my room
Don't come
here.
at you.
I'm jealous.
Now, Jeff, let's start with a really easy question for you. When's the release date? No, I'm just kidding. I had to shoot my shot, though. But seriously, what can you tell us about how the game is coming along so far?
Oh, it's coming along great. I mean, we're doing just constant playtests all the time and finding new things we want to try, and a lot of things that aren't working, a lot of things that are working, sort of surprising us. So I think we're sort of in this world now where we're still sort of experimenting with a lot of big things, like, you know, just as an experiment, we're gonna try Doomfist as a tank and stuff like that. I don't know if that'll work. It probably won't work, but you know,
why not?
we're just
I like the
trying
sound of
stuff.
that.
Why not?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Jeff. Why don't we let's just give the people what they want. I think the first thing that we'll be looking at is the new Sombra rework. Anything you want to say to set this up?
Yeah. So I mean, a lot of this is we've talked about this a little bit before, but we have this sort of goal we're going for right now to try to sort of reduce crowd control effects throughout the game, and the way we're sort of targeting that is kind of leaving it on tanks. It's kind of like a big thing that they get to do, and it's like their big role, among other things they do, of course. But so what it really comes down to is we're looking at all the non-tanks and figuring out, what kind of crowd control is really necessary. What do we think we can get away with? What feels kind of fair and what feels kind of unfair. I know that's a little hand wavy, but everyone has their own opinion on that, I'm sure. But so for right now, for example, Ana still has her sleep dart. We kind of feel like that's pretty fair. I don't know. Maybe we'll find out that people don't like that. I don't know. I think most people think it's pretty cool. But as part of these changes,
Don't touch my
Sombra.
Don't touch my Hannah.
But as part of these changes, Sombra is definitely a big target because it's like she's all about crowd control in some sense. So that's where a lot of this rework comes from. So the first thing is really just like how to reduce her sort of disabling effects while still keeping her really strong. So I think that's a decent lead, and I think it kind of explains.
Ooh. So
Well, we
excited.
like
All
the
right.
sound
So
of
excited.
that. Let's just dive straight in and take a look at the Sombra rework.
Yes, please.
For Sombra's rework, we have some really important changes that can dramatically affect the way she's played.
Overall, we are reducing her CC abilities in line with larger changes to Overwatch 2 and giving her more potential damage.
Let's start with changes to her hack ability. First, we significantly reduced the cooldown. Secondly, her hack now lasts 8 seconds, but now has 2 components to it. The first component of the ability works exactly like it does in Overwatch 1, disabling abilities. However, that effect now has been reduced to 1 second. The second component of hack is a brand new effect that reveals hack targets to Sombra and her team through walls, and it lasts the entire duration of the hack. In addition to that, her passive has gained the ability to do 50% more damage to hacked targets. For her ultimate ability, we tweaked it so it no longer removes all shields, but instead, it now just deals damage to enemies equal to 40% of their current health. Combined with her new passive effect, this gives her even more finishing potential.
Lastly, an update that really leans into her character is that you can now hack while being in stealth mode. You are briefly revealed when hacking, but it no longer removes stealth completely.
See you later.
Wow.
Wow, indeed.
Wow. Big fan of that. Sorry, guys. Sorry, I had to squeal there. Yeah.
I mean,
But-
I'm a main tank player, you know, straight off the bat. Everyone knows this.
That looks so
EM
fun, though.
EMPs and hacks is a big part of my Overwatch life. Now, hopefully not as much anymore. So, I mean, you mentioned it going into the video, of course. You've been taking an approach, talking about these different crowd control effects, whether it's May's freeze ability and in this case, Sombra's hack ability. What was your thinking when it came to hacks from Sombra? How did you approach this ability, and what did you decide to change it?
Yeah, so it was pretty tricky because she's so tied to this crowd control effect. So we wanted to, but we didn't want to take the hack away from her because she's a hacker. That doesn't make any sense. So we want to still be core to how she works and how she plays. So we started looking at other effects and what could we do that is impactful but isn't quite as brutal as just locking somebody out of their abilities for so long. We actually tried a version for a while where she just couldn't disable abilities at all. But there's some cool moments where you get to sort of counter like a fire ult that you see in the video or something if you're there at the right time or you're waiting for it at the right time. So we ended up keeping it in for just a short period of time, much shorter than usual. It's almost more of an interrupt than actually setting somebody up for a long duration thing.
Yeah.
But we let the hack last a little longer, and then most importantly, she gets to do a ton more damage when she against hack targets. So it's really this play when you're playing against her where she can hack while she's stealth. So your backline starts to get hacked. It's almost like a flag drop. Like I'm about to come at this person. It's like a warning to everybody that and it's almost like a disadvantage for her in a way. Yeah, exactly. Where she has to essentially call her targets before she gets to do big damage to them. So. But on the flip side, she gets to do way more damage than she has done before.
Hunter's mark.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that. I do think there's a really good place for Sombra in Overwatch, and I like these changes as well. The ability to mark targets, essentially, and then go after them. I think it's a really interesting change.
Yeah, I mean, I think, am I the only one that's super excited for the, I just want to...
I'm always on the receiving end. I don't play Sombra, so I'm like obviously less excited for what I see.
Now with this new rework, maybe we can be the Sombra player.
Oh, you want to be the Sombra to my Ryan?
Well, I mean, yeah, Geoff, you talked actually a lot about the new rework and everything, but I want you to, I want to ask you a little bit deeper. What direction are you trying to go with Sombra, just as a hero?
Right. So, I mean, I've always liked that she's sort of a little more of a setup hero. Like, obviously, she still requires a decent amount of aim skill, but she's not, the Widow or anything of the group. So I like that she's got this hybrid sort of very situational awareness and timing game going on, but also, obviously being decent at aiming helps a lot with her. So I wanted to keep a lot of that intact, and so I think a lot of what we see here is sort of deepening that in a way because, when we've been playtesting it, for example, there's a lot of like kind of mind gaming things you can do because the hack cooldown's really low now. So like I said before, when you hack somebody, you're kind of calling them out, like I'm about to open on this guy and do a bunch of damage, but like you can hack somebody and then you're still stealth, run to a completely different area, hack somebody else, and the whole team like rotated to help that person, but then you hack somebody else and go after them instead, and like it's so Sombra to be able to just like mess with people like that. It's so great. It's super fun. Plus the EMP just got so much more powerful.
Right.
And I did want to talk to that because the element of the hack that makes it powerful now is the extra damage increase. And as a support player who's been hacked also a lot in my life, the fear of that damage is going to go up even higher, especially with that EMP. Is that a big like tuning moment of like how much damage can this Sombra really put out? Because she's going more to, as you said, DPS than a crowd control hero and in this sort of rework. Yeah,
definitely. It's actually really interesting to play with because it doesn't remove shields anymore like it used to. So actually, it does less damage to Zarya and Zenyatta, any hero that has a ton of extra shields, because it doesn't strip them anymore. So, I mean, Zenyatta players are probably saying this is like a buff, actually. But against everybody else, it's just way better, especially against tanks. It's 40% of their current health, so it's different than Sigma's ultimate, where it's their max health. So it can't actually kill anybody. But the earlier you do it in the fight as a big setup move, it does so much more damage and weakens everybody It's this great sort of alley-oop. You know, obviously into a grab or something is great. Like, well, everything into a grab is great, so that doesn't really change. But
Point, yeah. Well, right, Geoff, Sombra isn't the only hero getting a rework in Overwatch 2. Of course, you will be working on basically everything. But here on our Watchpoint pre-show, we're also going to take a look at Bastion's rework, because there's more to him than just a pretty robot with a hat. Anything you want to say before we roll the tape?
The tape probably shows pretty much everything, but I will say it was definitely a goal to, much like Sombra, I guess, try to maintain some of that general flavor of sort of being able to sacrifice your mobility for extra damage. But we did want to pull back on it a little bit, because it got to the point where it was sort of like impossible to play him as that completely disabling yourself. So that should be deleted. We'll see.
We'll see indeed. Well, let's let's dive straight in. Let's roll the tape and see what you guys have done with Bastian.
Bastian is getting a big rework for Overwatch 2, and the team is really excited about his changes.
Look-wise, we updated and modernized his appearance with the use of sleeker, more modern materials. We also gave him a hat to help him stand out and to add an extra touch of character.
So going through Bastion's abilities, well, for starters, he no longer has his self-repair button at all. It's just gone. Instead, he now has a brand new ability that's bound to alternate fire. This ability fires a projectile that can bounce off of walls and stick to players, and it does a ton of damage, has a really big radius, it's super fun to fire. His recon form weapon has changed significantly as well. It now has no spread at all, but has reduced fire rate to compensate. This lets him poke at much longer ranges and play a little more like a pseudo-sniper, kind of like his recon form theme is always kind of meant to be. For his ultimate, we completely changed it up. He no longer has this tank mode, he instead goes into a new artillery mode.
You then get to choose 3 points to call down an artillery strike anywhere on the map within the ability's timeline.
Now finally, something we think you'll all be excited about. While in sentry form, Bastion can now move, albeit at a reduced movement speed. We've also changed the ability to have a cooldown now. This lets us keep it super strong since you can't use it all the time.
Okay.
Wow.
All right. Those are certainly some changes, and I have a lot of questions, but I feel like I need some time to process this. You want to take over Reinforce?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of questions. I have a lot of questions. Very good ones, of course, because that was amazing. Reworking Bastion, of course, from more of a specialist, being in sentry now. He has more mobility, as you mentioned. What was the problems you were trying to fix with Bastion, making these changes in the rework?
Yeah, so with Bastion, was one of our earliest heroes, and the game was a lot different back then, of course. And we tried to tune sort of this huge disadvantage with just not being able to move, with just like, how do we give him enough firepower to make that worth it? And I don't know if there's some magic tuning point, but I'm sure we definitely tried a lot of numbers to work there. But it really comes down to the fact that, like, being unable to move in a game like Overwatch, and you have heroes that have so much mobility and so much burst damage, like, it's kind of just unrealistic to try to like tune that in such a way that makes any sense. So when we first, kind of went to the drawing board on him again, it was like, let's look at the sort of elephant in the room here, and like, does he really need to be completely immobile to have this sort of effect? So that's sort of where we started experimenting right away with, like, maybe he can move somewhat, like, even just be able to move a little bit, yeah. So he can like go behind cover and stuff. So a huge difference. So he's at 50% move speed right now. I mean, all these numbers, going on right now are subject to change, of course. We're doing a lot of testing and stuff.
But, yeah,
but yeah,
for sure.
I love the look of it, though. It's just this slow, almost comedic choo-choo, deadly choo-choo train coming at us. Like, choo-choo.
I hope it makes sounds before it rounds the corner, so it's coming. Oh no!
I love it. Now I have some time to, recollect my thoughts. I do need to know, though, how much damage does that artillery actually do? And even more importantly, can Genji deflect it?
Right. Yeah, it's a pretty interesting ability because, it it's almost a little bit like Doomfist ult, where you get to create these, this targeting area to drop. Well, in this case, artillery shells. But it worked kind of like Doomfist for targeting purposes. But you get to shoot 3 of them, and the actual projectile coming down from above is a projectile like any other. So it can be defense matrix, it can be reflected, it can be all these things. So you can look up and block it with Reinhardt shield
I love
if you're
that.
really pro. It's possible for it to hit a flying Pharah if she's really unlucky. Like, it's just flying.
My mind is going wild with possibilities right now. Like, what can we do with
Yeah,
this?
it's like I'm combining a lot of things. Like
Genji.
if you flux them and they're up in the air, and then you strike them when they're in the air.
Or just grab them and just
Grab.
freeze.
It always comes back to the grab.
Yeah, everything just goes well with the grab. It's like
Answer to everything.
yeah, it's like black clothing. It's like, oh, that works.
All right. I have. This might not be a smart question, but I really wanted to ask this. So my
No
favorite
dumb
mode,
questions, Danny.
yeah, for Bastion Rework was the sentry mode. I find that very cute as well, and I think I'm gonna enjoy it. How long can you stay in that form? Is there a time limit, or can you just roll around, or is it rolling around?
Choo-choo forever.
Can you
I don't know.
choo-choo forever? Yeah, drive forever.
So it has a cooldown
wanted
now,
to.
which is pretty different. I mean, before it was
Oh.
part of his sort of kit to be able to transform wherever he wanted to, but it got to the point where we really wanted to keep a lot of the power in this thing. Even though he can move, we wanted it to be very, very powerful. And when you see him come around the corner, you'd be really scared of it, and maybe have to back up or give him some space or something. So in order to really get that sort of power level, we decided to put a cooldown on it for now. So you can't do it all the time, but the uptime on it's pretty high. So you definitely are going to be able to do it a lot, but it allows us to make the ability a lot more powerful that way. Also, to hit
So
on
it's like
that mode a lot.
it's like a Cinderella pumpkin kind of, right? Like
just to touch
transform
on Zoe's
back and then
question
you gotta
again.
get out of there. You gotta get out of there.
Just to answer your
wait until
damage
next time. What?
ultimate question real quick.
sorry.
The damage on the ult is because I know people are going to want to know this stuff for sure. Some people anyway. The impact, the actual shell coming down from the sky actually does impact damage too, much like our fire rockets and Junkrat bombs and stuff like that. The impact does 300 right now, and the explosion also does 300. So direct hit is 600 if you happen to get hit by it directly.
Oh wow.
Which is really nasty, but it's pretty unlikely to get hit directly. And then it does a bunch of fall off from the point of impact out to its full radius. So you can
Looking at
live if
Costa's
you get
face,
to
he's gonna be the
outside.
lucky one in the middle of it.
I have a problem dodging wrecking ball mines. I now have another thing that I have to really avoid.
There are 3 Doomfist ultimates.
Yeah. When you said you were changing Doomfist, I didn't expect that I'd have to deal with another person like that. So I am interested though, because the first thing I thought of when I saw it rolling around, I was like, they just wanted to bring Pirate Ship back, but make it so he can do it himself. He's his own little pirate ship now, just like
I don't need
rolling
no
around.
ship.
Yeah, I don't need a shield with me. I can do it all myself. So my question with that is what is the most interesting thing that you've seen with this kit change? Because there's a lot. There's the mine. There's the rolling around in sentry form, the artillery. What's your favorite thing?
Oh man, there's a lot to sort of comment on here. So it's I really love the ult. I think it's super fun. The fact you get 3 shots, you get a lot of kind of mind games with that too, because typically when you first play, you're probably just gonna carpet bomb an area, bam, 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 click them as fast as possible, gives people less reaction time. But also what you can do is drop them right on top of everybody, and then drop one kind of where you think they're about to go, and then hold the third one for a couple beats, and then drop it. You can just really mess with people on how you're dropping it, because you get to sit there for a little while.
I'm afraid.
And
Oh my
it's
God.
super
I'm
fun
afraid.
just to mess with people. I mean, you have to be a little weird because you're sitting there, much like Junkrat is when he does his ultimate. You're sitting there vulnerable somewhere, and hopefully no one's killing you or you're protected or something. So I've definitely got caught sometimes just being in some silly place, just sitting there for too long trying to mess with people. But it's pretty fun.
The mind games returns. I do have one last question I would like to ask anyway.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure, I've asked you this several times. I've had the chance to speak with you, but I can't remember the answer. This time with the rework, have you actually tried Bastion being able to mount Orisa and why did that not work?
Why the Lord would anyone want that?
It's amazing. It's like jousting. It's good. Did you try it out?
That sounds like an Orisa ability more than a Bastion ability to me. I
Okay,
liked it,
just throw someone up there and let her run around.
So what I'm hearing from that answer, Geoff, is it's not out of question. It's just a Bastion's ability.
Orisa rework.
I fear for the sanity of our animators to try to make that look decent in any way possible. but yeah, maybe.
I appreciate it. I
Maybe
appreciate
not.
it.
Let's not go there. But hey, kudos to you for pushing it, Reinforce.
I'm trying my best.
Yeah, you
You're
really
doing
do.
great.
You really do. I really appreciate it. I also really appreciate you taking the time here to chat with us, Geoff. We can't wait to see what else you and the team have in store for us. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Sure, no problem. Great to be here. Thanks a lot.